Chris, I understand your beef. Why would I not apologize? An apology is when you say something that you shouldn't have said, that was wrong to say, that you said for bad reasons, or you're trying to hurt. None of those apply. I hear your understanding of the pandemic. I don't agree. I lived it closer than you in many ways. Closer than any of you, probably, in many ways. And there were absolutely mistakes made. The idea that it was a totalitarian regime, that's hyperbole. My main reason for wanting to discuss this with you guys, I do this for 3 reasons. A lot of people would say the first is that I'm a self-loather, and I like to set myself up in very bad situations. Maybe, maybe not. I think there's a huge mistake being made in ignoring this conversation. Now, you say this world of podcasts, you're having a very limited definition of podcasts. You, Rogan, Poole, this is a very small part of what the podcast world is, right? You have a lot of different ideologies there. The media, the power structures, do not understand why I would be here right now. I got the same message. I did a lot of prep for tonight because frankly, this was years ago, and I had to go back and understand the context of time, look at what you were saying at the time, and frankly, the idea that you were ahead of understanding is like saying a broken clock is right twice a day. You didn't like things. You were right to not like them. I didn't like them. But to say you knew things is not accurate in terms of what I've seen and what you put out. They were operating on guesses. Now that gets much more powerful when we get into the vaccine. But in terms of the pandemic in general, the idea that we were doing things in the United States that were just so crazy is demonstrably false because it was happening everywhere else in the world. So it's not like just the US decided to go batshit crazy and I couldn't wait for the ride. That's not the case. Why I'm doing this is, here's my big concern. I have no problem with you laying into me. And I think you're funny, and I think you're smart, and I understand why he believes in you. I do, because I didn't know who you were. Now I've listened to 19 hours of what you do. Why you want to call yourself, as somebody who ever wants to be in politics, Legion of Skank, I have no idea why you want to identify with that word, but we'll talk about that after this tonight.
Sure.
Here's what I want, okay? And Pat knows this already. Do we know what the vaccine is doing in people's bodies right now? No. Do we know what COVID is doing in people's bodies right now? No. I talked this week in preparation to be with you guys to 2 different people who are at the top of the research ladder of long COVID. That is a very pale distinction. They are paying very little attention to this. There are millions of people for whom COVID is not over. Every researcher I talked to said, we are understanding now that the reach of COVID, you know, the flu that we have now is from 1918, right? Everybody knows that, it's just changed over time. They believe that this is happening with the COVID virus, which is in part why it's important to know where it came from, and they shouldn't have surrendered that. And we can talk tons about it, and I can talk to the doll as if it were Tony, but I don't believe that he should be the boogeyman in this. I think China's the boogeyman, and they can't get at China, so they go with Tony. But we'll have the conversation. I want people to recognize and get behind a common cause. That's why I'm here, okay? This is not set up to go well for me. That's okay. I've been beaten up by, people I'd rather be around much less than you guys. So this is a step up. There has to be a review of the entire pandemic. A 9/11 style commission where you get people who Dave likes, who Pat likes, who scientists like, who the right likes, who the left likes. We did the same thing after 9/11, and it worked. None of them were currently in office. All of them were respected enough. They had a diverse set of opinions. They looked at the situation. They came up with a set of directives, and we followed almost none of them. So it can be flawed as well. You have to look at what you didn't like early on. Masks, lockdowns, understanding of the case structure, what we did in schools, what we did in communities, what we did with businesses. Then came Operation Warp Speed, what we did with that. Then came the implementation of the vaccine, how we did that, and why. Mandates. All of it should be reviewed, because I'm going to tell you something, no disrespect, okay? I study this all the time, okay? sometimes I'm taken out of context. I'm not vaccine injured. I had my symptoms before I got vaccinated. Could the vaccine be doing something to my body? Maybe. I don't mean to sound conspiratorial about it, but they do know that what they didn't know, and I'm sorry if it's too in the weeds, but I tell you, we can't just talk around this with clever slogans and digs. It's not helping us. We're not getting anywhere, okay? They now know that what they didn't know at the time with the vaccine development, even though they used it for AIDS and Zika and Ebola, they didn't know that when they put it in my body and they put it in your body.
Never made it into mine.
The rates, I mean, look, you can applaud it as a choice, but there are several facts, okay, that we know. One is they didn't know how much spike protein my body would make or for how long versus his, okay? And that is huge in terms of deciding what kind of complications you can have. The idea that the vaccine is poison is demonstrably false. How do we know? Because of what happened once people started taking the vaccine here and everywhere else in the world. The correct pushback to that is, no, it hurt as many people as it didn't. That's bullshit. The correct pushback is, not everybody needed to take it. And you made everybody take it. And you shouldn't have. That is a legitimate grievance. I don't know the answer to that. I believe that with the later variants, we now know that this vaccine didn't do what it did with the earlier ones. And they should have changed the messaging, and they didn't. We know that. I'm here to have the conversation. You tell me what you're upset about. I'll deal with it. We'll talk about why I said what I said. I have no secrets. But what I want is not to slap Dave around in a debate and not to be clever and not to get applause and not for you to want to take pictures with me at the end of the night. I want you to go home and say, sheesh, we got to know a lot more about this, and nobody is looking. That commission we have, one in Congress, and then I'll shut up, is a sham, okay? Where did it come from? Tony Fauci, we know where it came from. It came from China. We know where it was. It was in a lab. We know who was working on it. It was China. We know who won't let us look in the lab. It's China. So that's your answer. But what about all these other questions? They don't even care about them. The Trumpiest politicians that I talk to won't touch any of the things that we are talking about right now. That's what I want to change, and I'm happy to have the conversation.
If you're watching this, the way you get to vote for today's debate so far, because we got a bunch of other issues we got to talk about right now with Trump, convicted felon, migration, dual citizenship. I'm not done. We're just getting started right now. You get to vote by sending a Manect to Dave Smith and to Chris Cuomo, if you can put their Manect up. Ask him any questions, anything you agreed with, disagreed with, papers, articles, whatever it is. This is the way to get connected with them. They're both on Manect, and they actually get back to people very quickly.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.